Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Badgerland Birding Podcast, bringing you birding news and more from the Badger State and beyond. Today, we are here with a very special guest, a very interesting birder named Trey McCuen, who hails from Georgia. Trey, how are you doing tonight?
Good. And how about yourself?
Doing well. We had a little bit of a, I'm not going to call it a debacle, but Derek got stuck playing tennis late and is now kind of trapped on his phone as he's listening to us talk while he's trying to get to a place where he can use his computer. So he's lurking in the background and can hear us, but he's not going to participate until he gets back home. So we'll see what that's like when he finally gets it all straightened out. But Trey, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to this year because you've been doing something kind of interesting, haven't you?
Yeah. So I've in recent years just started guiding tours, and so this year while I'm traveling the country, I'm trying to look out for as many different birds as I can find while I'm traveling to all these different areas, guiding at all these different birding festivals and stuff like that. Um, so I'm hitting all the major places, hence where a lot of the major festivals would be, such as Florida, um, southern Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, southeast Arizona. Um, you could say it's kind of like a big year, but I'm
I was
not.
gonna ask, I was gonna say, is it an official, the B word, the big year?
No, 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 I'm not. I'm not chasing every individual bird. I'm just more or less trying to get as many as I can while traveling to all the different major areas. So my goal is 650. So um, we'll see how that plays out. Right now, I'm pushing almost 400, and I've just got to Colorado uh, last night. So I've not really hit the ground birding here yet. So, and this is my first time out west for the year. So there's a lot in store for this summer.
Yeah, it sounds like you're gonna have quite the summer because we were just talking before we started recording, and you're gonna be out there pretty much through August. So do you think is that gonna be too much time out there? Is that gonna be just enough? What are you most excited for out there too? What are the targets that you're really trying to nail down while you're out there?
Well, actually, one of the targets nailed down yesterday, which is a bird that's never easy to find. This is actually my first time seeing one in Colorado, despite 3 or 4 times of looking before. Um, they're most easiest to find on the wintering grounds, not on the breeding grounds. And that bird is a mountain plover.
Ah, yes, the mountain.
They're
So you're in the plover camp, huh? You're a plover guy, not a plover guy?
yeah, yeah, I guess you could say so. But um, so yeah, not an easy bird to find, especially in the breeding season, because there's just so much remote habitat, remote grassland out west, and 90+% of it is inaccessible, and all those birds are just scattered about in an immense amount of area. And so they're a little bit easier to find on the wintering grounds in South Texas and Southern Arizona, um, when they're not nesting, but still can be a challenge even on the wintering grounds. So
Yeah, that bird would actually
also the
be a lifer for me, and we were potentially going to be able to see the ones in South Texas, but we opted to go for the bar-tailed godwit and the cattle tyrant that day instead. And we were thinking if we had enough time, we could swing by and get the mountain plover, but we did not have enough time because we spent pretty much the entire duration of what we had left trying to find the bar-tailed godwit. But do you feel like there's a special mystique about birding in the West because everything is so spread out and there's so many just big areas where you can't even get to or don't even know what's there really?
yeah, exactly. it's not like the East. It's the West is just a lot more remote, and like even when you're planning a trip out here, like a lot of the birds you would think out here that should be common or uncommon but still gettable. Even looking on eBird, you can have a hard time even pinning something down where to find something even like a sagebrush sparrow, which should just, one would think that would in any sage habitat would be common, but they can be tough. It's birds like that that kind of make up the mystique of the West.
I feel like it's strange too because in the East, the habitat's definitely different, but the species profiles aren't that different. So if you go basic stuff in Delaware, it's going to be similar to the stuff in Wisconsin, it's going to be similar to the stuff in Georgia with exceptions. But then you get the West and you have, Washington State is vastly different than Arizona. So just the
Right.
the habitats out there are so drastically different that you really have to go to specific places to find specific species, which I always find to be very interesting because we make a lot of videos about, birds to find in the East, and then the West is hard because you're thinking, are we talking about birds in the Rocky or yeah, birds in the Rocky Mountains, birds along the coast, birds in the Great Plains. So it's very interesting. What's the thing that you want to find next out there?
Um, it's actually my most wanted bird. And I've looked for this thing about half a dozen times here in Colorado, and I've still never seen it. And it's a white-tailed ptarmigan. I'll
Oh
be
yeah.
trying. I'll be trying once again, but I was actually talking to a fellow from Colorado. I met up at the biggest week, and we got to talking about ptarmigans, and he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "You almost got to hear them or watch them fly in. Otherwise, it's almost, I don't know. The vibe I just kind of got from him is if you didn't hear it or like see it fly in or see it moving, forget it. Because I mean, they are masters of camouflage. I mean, these birds could just be crouching down, sitting still 5 feet away from you, and you walk right past it and never see it."
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's definitely one that we would love to see as well. There's just something special about the grouse and the ground dwelling birds. I don't know why. It's just when you see one of those, any grouse species pretty much, it just is special because they're so tricky. And you wouldn't think they're so tricky because it's this big chicken-like bird, but they're very elusive and very well camouflaged and usually very tough to actually get a look at.
Right, right. Yeah, and that goes for just about any species of game bird, grouse, quail, ptarmigan.
Yeah. So let's talk more about what you've done so far for your sort of big year. Can you kind of lay out the timeline of what you've done so far, what areas you've hit, and kind of some of the special moments that you've had along the way so far? Because there's a purpose behind the big year too. You're trying to
Exactly.
promote your tour guide company that you're trying to start.
Exactly. So yeah, so yeah, started the year off in January 1st, birding in Georgia. Birded in Georgia for about a week or so. Got just a lot of local common birds. As one would expect. If you're not from the South, probably the one that would stick out the most that I picked up during that time was brown-headed nuthatch. But in Georgia, those are common. We get them at the feeders in the yard. So, I mean, that's nothing too out of the ordinary for me. But, and then about the second week in January, um, packed up and headed to the Rio Grande Valley. Boy, that place was on fire
Was
this
that
last
around the
winter.
same time when we went there too, where Rasaka had all the stuff?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, that place was on fire for about 4 months in a row.
yeah. I've never seen anything like it, and it was only for some reason South Texas just pulling in the rarities. Like there was really, other than the long-staying yellow-headed caracara in Florida, there was nothing that spectacular showing up. And I'm used to in January every year being like, oh, we need to chase this for the year, starting off for the new year in Florida, whether it's a spindalis is there or a fork-tailed flycatcher, or like one year went down to the Keys. I think this was 2 or 3 years ago, and picked up black-faced grassquit and red-legged thrush.
Oh, nice.
Um, on one trip, but yeah, I was just kind of blew me away that the lack of rarities in Florida this past winter. But yeah, Florida, I mean, Texas was hopping. Got most of the rarities down there. Got both the gray collared and the rose-throated Beckards in the same little feeding flock there at
So
the
wait, wait,
Sac.
wait, wait, wait. You're not only a plover guy, you're also in the Beckard camp instead of the Becard camp.
Yeah, I guess you live and you learn. Who
So wait, wait,
says?
wait. Where are you on the Lazuli versus Lazuli bunting debate?
I say lazuli.
Okay, so that's we always get tripped up over the bunting because half the
Yeah.
people we talk to say lazuli and then half the people say lazuli and then people also say weird combinations of both. So I honestly still have no idea what the correct pronunciation is of that bird species.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it remains a mystery. But um so yeah, picked up all the rarities that were hanging out down there. The Beckards, roadside hawk. Um Made it over to the Santa Margarita Ranch. Got some really neat stuff there on the day trip. We did get the bare-throated tiger heron, but um we were only able to count it for our Mexico list.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but
ABA style, for eBird style, you could count it. And for those
yeah,
of you that don't know out there, there's different rules for what's countable for the ABA versus what's countable on eBird. So on eBird, if you're standing in the United States and you look across the border to Mexico, you can count whatever that bird is for that place you saw it from. For the ABA, which is kind of in charge of the lists that people have for big years and everything, it's where the bird is when it is seen is where it counts for. So when we were down in Santa Margarita Ranch as well, it was on the Mexico side for most of the time. And so a lot of people were very eager to try to see it on the US side as well, which was kind of a funny
right.
experience. Did you get the brown jays too while you were there?
Ah, yes and no. Like, I like to be 100% pure with my list. So, like, the way I am is even if I'm with a group of people, if I didn't get satisfying looks of the bird, and somebody's like, oh yeah, 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 that's what it is. If I say to myself, okay, Trey, if you were there by yourself, would you be able to confidently ID this bird, even if nobody else was here? And if the answer is no, I don't like doing it. But you know, that's just the way I roll.
I like
Um,
it. Keep the
gotta
list
take
pure, right?
Yeah. So I didn't count it, but saw saw large jay grackle, black brown. Was kind of too far to discern color in the sun and all, but white birds sitting in the bare branches, top of the trees, way in the distance. Like, for all I know, could have been grackles. But super, super far. But
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a situation that's always almost worse actually than just not seeing it. I would almost rather
right,
not have someone say, "Yeah, that's it. I can tell," and you don't get a really good look at it versus just you never saw it. Did you get
right.
mottled owl too?
Yes, we did. So yeah, we did the day or two later. Yeah, we did the night trip, and the guides got it in the spotlight for everybody, and we everybody got good audio recordings and good photos of it. And yeah, like, it was just a very special experience, because you don't usually, I mean, for one, it's a mottled owl, so the first ABA record, and two, like, you just don't get to see owls up close and personal like that. Like, you kind of, if you do see one, it's just you see the shape of it sitting up in a tree, or a pole at night, or you see it flying by. So, and so yeah, it was a really, really special experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what was the next big destination you went to after
So then I
Rio
kind
Grande?
of did so there were some rarities showing up in the Northeast. There was a red flank blue tail hanging out, and a couple rare geese, and just a bunch of other like Northeast winter specialties. Um, and a few of them I've needed as a lifeguard, because that was the on that trip, that was the first time I'd ever been to the Northeast. So it was, yeah, not quite a week. Yeah, about a week or so, not quite a week, but yeah, did pick up the red flank blue tail. That was kind of the main target, but I picked up both of the rare geese, pink-footed goose and barnacle goose, both of which were life birds for me. Um, and I did some ocean birding there on the Jersey Shore. A really good place to go that I highly recommend is called Barnegat Lighthouse. And
Yep, yep. We made a
um,
video about that place, and we were there
oh, cool.
later in the year than I think you were. So anybody that
Okay.
wants to see this place that Trey's talking about, you can check out that video. But it's your quintessential coastal lighthouse scenario with these rocks and a break wall you can walk on, and it's supposed to be one of the premier places in the area to see just tons of harlequin ducks up close. We saw tons of brants up close. There's probably
Hmm.
purple sandpipers during the winter are supposed to be very prolific there.
Yeah.
What
Oh
else?
yeah, like,
Great
oh yeah, that
cormorants.
that was one of the highlights for me, was the purple sandpipers. Like, I walked out almost as far as I felt comfortable going to the end of the jetty. And at the end of the jetty, there's like a yellow tower, or a yellow structure there. But just before the end of the jetty, there were these, and I didn't even see them until I just kind of stumbled upon them, because they kind of blend in with the rocks. But there must have been like 50 purple sandpipers just all around there in front of me. And let me tell you this, they didn't even get up and fly away, because I just kind of birded my way down the jetty, scoping out the water, looking at the harlequin ducks and scoters and everything. They just kind of hopped out of the way. I mean, I could have reached down and grabbed one of them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like they
You could
did
have brought
not
that down to
care. But
Georgia, had a nice little state bird for yourself there.
what's that?
Bring one of those purple sandpipers down to Georgia, have a nice little state bird.
Yeah, yeah, we get them. Didn't get them this year in Georgia, but I did look a couple times in January at Tybee Island, the jetty there. That's normally the go-to place for purple sandpiper in Georgia. But yeah, that Barnegat Lighthouse, man, that's something else. There's all three scoters there. As you mentioned earlier, harlequin ducks, the tower, yellow tower I just referred to earlier. Usually has great cormorants sitting on it, and then kind of the main target bird there for me was a female king eider. That was another life bird for me on the trip.
Sounds like you had a heck of a trip to New Jersey.
So yeah, so that was Jersey, and then um, there was a common gull showing in Connecticut at, I forget this, in southern Connecticut at one of the parks on the lake. But um, yeah, so I decided to swing up there, and didn't quite know how it was going to go, because it was on the wet drive there that morning. It was pouring rain, and I pull up, and there's a line of birders that don't care, standing out in the rain with ponchos and their scopes out and everything. Um and went up, and yep, the common goat was just out right there. But what's also interesting is the day before that, they had a short-billed gull there too. Um,
Used to be
so
lumped with
most
what did it used to be lumped with? Was it
Mugo.
Mughal? Yeah, Mughal
Yes,
and
so it used
short-billed
to
gull
be
used to be
lumped
one.
with Mugo, and so it's yeah.
Oh, I gotta
Um,
pause for a second. Did you hear the herring gull news?
what's that?
It's apparently being split into four different species.
Really?
Yeah, the one that lives in North America is gonna be the American herring gull.
Just like I mean, okay. I
Not
mean
gonna
that's
change that much for you, but if you've been out of the country and seen some herring gulls, it could add some different
sure.
species to your life list. But the gulls are constantly getting split these days and lumped and split and lumped.
Yeah, I mean that's goes kind of similar with not too long ago. They split the goshawks, and now the one here
Yep.
is called
We just want to put
American
American in
goshawk.
front of
So,
everything. We or
I
Western. Now we
mean,
got
I
Western
mean,
cattle
come
egret, American
yeah,
goshawk.
Western cattle egret. I mean, come on, folks. Like, it's not that hard. Like, be more creative.
I think it's
But
just the low-hanging fruit, you know?
yeah,
Just
it's
change the name
tempting.
completely, call it like the
It's
peach-colored egret or something. That'd be kind of cool.
yeah, the low hanging fruits always tempting to take, but
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
not always the right fruit to take.
that's true.
Um,
So after the Northeast, well, first of all, I actually have one more question about the Northeast. So you're obviously from Georgia. You definitely seem like a Georgia kind of guy, Trey. Like I picture you driving an airboat down in Georgia, showing people the different birds that live in the swamps. Did you have any trouble with the cold when you're up in the Northeast in winter, or did you handle it pretty well?
oh no, no, I'm, as some people would say, a freak of nature. Um, I don't really get that cold unless it's, we're getting down to like 20 degrees.
Wait, it's getting down to 20 degrees. It gets down to, negative 10 degrees up here and in the Northeast.
But yeah, so no, it wasn't that cold when I was up there. It was like 20, 30 degrees.
Oh, that's a
I
nice
mean,
day in the Northeast.
yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, there was no snow really anywhere. I was when I there expecting snow, but given on how this last winter went with snow, pretty much anywhere up north. I mean, seems like there was a huge lack of it, and it especially had an effect in getting some of the species in the Saxon bog this last winter in Minnesota. Um,
What's up, fellas?
Look who just popped right in.
hey, hey,
How's it going? It was fun listening to you guys.
Was there ever a
yeah,
time when you just really needed to cut in and you just couldn't? That it was just,
Not too much, just kind of enjoying. I had that
yeah.
tennis match got done late, so I got to give the backstory of the flamingo profile picture that I have when the camera's off. Because I did an interview for the Today Show over Zoom. So it was about the flamingo. So I was like, well, I'll have the flamingo background, and then the interview never aired, but the background remains. It's still the Wisconsin flamingos. But yeah, it was fun hearing about some of your travels, Trey. And
Yeah.
a lot of the species that you still need to see are ones that I still want to see as well. Did you mentioned there wasn't too much in Florida? Was the large build turnaround at the start of the year? Because I know that
It
was like
was not. So that was just a recent thing. It showed up like a day or two ago when I was um on the way out here to Colorado.
did you think about
So,
going back there?
no.
because I
No.
remember like
No, it
last.
got me thinking though. When it showed up, it did get me thinking back to last year because it was there last year. That got me thinking what month it showed up last year, and I haven't looked to confirm, but I think it did show up in June last year as well.
Okay, maybe it'll be a yearly thing. That'd be cool.
So
That would be cool.
it
Was there
might
gray
be.
gull around?
No, there's been no reports of it. The last guy to see it was our big year birder this year, Ezekiel Dobson. He he was the last one to to see it there back in May. So I'm sure it's just still floating around there somewhere in the Panhandle in Florida or in Alabama.
Yeah,
But
it just pops in and pops out. So I actually, there's a couple things I want to talk about. First one is I want to talk about what it's like birding in Georgia, because there are a couple species that are down there that are pretty good. I think that a lot of people, like myself, think about Georgia as, a swamp similar to parts of
yeah.
Florida. What is it like birding there? What's the terrain like? What are the species that everyone would want to come down there to see?
Yeah, so not many people picture Georgia as like a birding destination that they want to go to, um or anything. I mean, because it's not a Southeast Arizona or a South Texas or a South Florida, but Georgia definitely has a lot to offer as far as species that are kind of specialties to the Southeast, or otherwise kind of a little more difficult to find in other spots of the country. Of course, the main attraction in the spring is all the warblers and neotropical migrants coming in. I'm in central Georgia, so we get a lot of those southern breeding warblers just right there in town, like Swainson's, Kentucky hooded, prairie, prothonotary, Louisiana water thrush. Um, yeah, and then a lot of those warblers breed in riparian corridors, and then so we have another group of specialties, also known as the pinewood specialties there, um, and that involves the trifecta of the brown-headed nuthatch, red-cockaded woodpecker, and Bachman sparrow, all of which you can find right there in central Georgia, all at one location. So yeah, definitely has a lot to offer. In the spring, with all the warblers coming through, in the summer, kind of slows down. There's not too much to see. A rarity or two might pop up here and now and again. But then fast forwarding into the fall, we get our late July, early August, is when our shorebirds start to come back down south. So two of the main ones kind of people look for that are more that time of year than in the spring are upland and buff-breasted sandpiper, both of which can be very tricky in Georgia, because they're just passing through. There's no reason for them to stay anywhere for any length of time. But so yeah, a lot of the warblers and flycatchers and all are coming back through in the fall. And then the winter is rarity season, so we get a lot of rarity showing up, especially on the coast. We get long-tailed ducks, common eider every year on the coast, just along with all of our other regular wintering shorebird species. As I mentioned earlier, the purple sandpiper is probably the one that people might consider the biggest highlight, just because it's only found predominantly at one location in Georgia. And then kind of another big thing to check for on the coast in the winter that could be difficult other places in the country are the three marsh sparrows. So Nelson's, seaside, and salt marsh sparrow. All three of those are wintering in Georgia and then in the breeding season, the seaside stays behind and breeds, while the Nelsons and the salt marsh heads north up the Atlantic coast to the New England states. And then there's also in the Atlantic subspecies of Nelson sparrow also heads north up the coast to the New England states, whereas the interior subspecies of Nelson's will head up to like western Wisconsin, North Dakota, Minnesota, and breed in those sedge marshes up there. So, yeah, a lot. Winter is probably the season that gets the most rarities in Georgia. So, but yeah, and then we get a lot of other just regular southern wetland species that like purple gallinules, black-bellied whistling ducks, spoonbills, wood storks, stuff like that. The mountains in North Georgia are a draw. So state
I didn't even think
listers will,
about there being mountains in North Georgia.
yeah. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
the
What do you
furthest
mean? Oh
south.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
oh yeah, it's the furthest south that the Blue Ridge Mountains come in the east. So a lot of
Andoer River.
Georgia state listers doing a year list will go up there so they can tick off kind of species you wouldn't find outside of the mountains, like common raven, ruffed grouse, red crossbill, a lot of warblers that are passing through that are heading north to breed. Some of them will breed up in those mountains in North Georgia, and that's the southernmost breeding population of those species. Stuff like Canada warbler, worm eating, black-throated blue, ovenbird. I mean, it's not uncommon in the summer to go up there birding and get 15 or 20 species of warblers all just breeding up there. So,
how
uh,
hard is it for salt marsh sparrows?
they're so the easiest time to get them is on a astronomical high tide. So if you follow the
That's
tides online, um, follow the tides online and just go when it's gonna be astronomical. I've been down there one time on an astronomical high tide, and man, I've never seen anything like it. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. Like they're just like running just all around my feet, like as I'm standing in the bushes, like, and they have nowhere to go because the tide's so high. But if you go down there looking for them on just any general given day, the high tide could easily be low enough of a high tide to where it's not even going to drive them in.
Yeah, I
So
had that experience when we were in New Jersey. Is that when the tide was low, they just had too much space. And one guy
right,
kept reporting them anyway, but it was very confusing as to whether they were actually there or not. But he said when the tide
right,
comes in, there's nowhere for them to go because the habitat's gone, so they're just there.
yeah.
What time of the year is best for salt marsh sparrows down in Georgia?
So they start coming in about October, but I would say anywhere from November through March is when you're gonna have the best luck with them. But then again, the high tide cannot be high enough to drive them in. Like in January when I did my trip to the Georgia coast, I went and looked for them, and it was only a 5.5 foot high tide. It wasn't even a 6 foot tide, and that was all. That was the high tides. I mean, and just looking out there in the marsh at a 5 to 5.5 foot high tide, there is still so much mud out there. Like so, even at that high tide, it's not high enough to drive them in. But
that's like one of the only species I where you have to watch the tide to try to find it. Like it's so specialized to that degree. Like
yeah,
at sparrow, you can just go, you'll hear them, you can see them. But like salt marsh, that just kind of blows my mind because I didn't even think about that when we were going to look.
No one tells you.
oh yeah,
Yeah, the
Well, now
things you
people
don't.
tell us that, but they didn't tell us that at the start.
yeah, yeah. Mm-mm-mm.
So
So,
Trey,
oh, go ahead.
all the travel you've been doing, like you're in your car right now. Do you end up staying like in your car a lot? What's that like?
Yeah, so I've just gotten used to staying in the just sleeping in the car, just crashing at mostly just rest areas along the way on the interstate. And I mean, when you when you truly love something and truly have a passion for something, you'll do anything, even if it means sleeping in the car and you know just eating mostly peanut butter sandwiches and packaged tuna for 2 or 3 months. Like
Is it kind of
That's
free
tough.
and be on the road and all that?
it was breaking up a little bit.
I said, is it kind of freeing to just be on the road and sleep in the car and just wake up and get going?
Oh yeah, yeah. It just feels like you're just a wild stallion on the open plains. Like you're just out there, just like ready to go, ready to get some birds. Like yeah, just the vibes and the energy just is pumping. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, you
So
got some Ken Kaufman energy, Kingbird Highway type deal.
Yeah,
Like
it's been a while since I've
sheep and things.
yeah, he does get pretty deep into stuff. It's been a while since I've read that book, but
Derek just read it, so now it's all he talks about.
Good book.
no, okay.
But I was gonna ask,
Yeah, it's a good book. It's a good book. I should read it again at some point.
since you're trying to start your guiding company, and you're talking about how much of passion you have for birding, do you have an equal passion for showing other people the birds that they're looking for as well? Does that have the same kind of enjoyment to you as it does just being out there by yourself?
Absolutely. Just being able to show somebody something for the first time that they may have never seen before is just priceless. Like it's just like almost it's just like you seeing it, for the first time. It just brings the same of just seeing somebody with that amount of joy and excitement. It just brings me a lot of joy and excitement as well. So
Where can people find more about your guiding stuff? Do you have a website,
yeah,
Trey?
yeah, visit loggerheadnaturetours.com to learn more about our tours throughout the country and daily guiding in Georgia. And don't forget to check us out on Instagram and Facebook as well. So so yeah, kind of the most recent news with Loggerhead Nature Tours. We'll be at the Space Coast Birding Festival in late January, guiding field trips at that festival. So come out and visit us. We'll be out there, and then I'll be back there at the biggest week again next year. So looking forward to that. It's a little bit later this year or this next year. It's a week later. So I know this year some people were kind of talking about how it was kind of a little on the earlier end, and some of the more later birds that are coming in, we really didn't get to see during the festival. Like there's usually always a Kirtland's warbler that and a Connecticut warbler that everybody chases during the festival. And I mean, it was a Kirtland's one day, and it was the access was off limits to the public. So
Was
um
this year? I don't think I even heard about that.
It might have been after
yeah,
we left.
it was in an area that's not accessible to the public, so it didn't get publicized. But um But and there was a Connecticut too, but it hung around for like a day,
Yeah.
and not many people got to see it. But those are the two big warblers that everybody wants to see up there, the most wanted, and which also tend to come in a little bit later in May than just about everything else. So with the festival being a little earlier this year, we missed things like that, but that's okay. Like, still lots of great birds, lots of great people. Had an awesome time, and can't wait to do it again next year. So
Yeah, we did have that prairie warbler. A bunch of people got
yeah,
just
we did.
to pinpoint that thing. It was
Don't
like,
do spoilers, Derek.
well, look on eBird and see, but yeah, I mean that was cool.
Yeah, and you
I
guys,
mean,
you and
oh, go ahead, Trey.
I was just gonna say, and you and Ryan are the two that found it.
Yeah, that was cool.
So
If you
that
want to
was
see
cool.
more of
How does
Trey
it?
in living color, he's going to be appearing in some of the Ohio videos. So if you like what you hear from Trey, get excited to see him in action in some of the biggest week videos.
He was also on our we did the birding trivia. Big asset to our trivia team.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Legendary
we
trivia
did.
asset.
That was a blast. Yeah, that was. Yeah, we got fourth place. That was. Yeah, we did good.
Spoilers.
Yeah, those birds. The I think the hardest category was probably the nicknames.
The range maps was pretty challenging.
That one was too, but the nicknames one really had me thinking. Like the question, I can't believe it. The question was literally, what bird, what bird's nickname is the black curlew? And I sat there for 2 or 3 minutes thinking, okay, it's probably not a shorebird. Okay, it's probably still a water bird. Okay, which? And then eventually I got into thinking about the wading birds. What wading birds are black? Well, there's no herons and egrets that are black. Ibis just never came to my mind. Like,
Well, then you'd have to pick between
I don't
glossy
know
and
how it
whiteface
evaded
anyway.
me.
It would have been a
What's that?
50-50. It would have been a 50-50 shot whether it was glossy or whiteface anyway, because both are so
True.
similar. But I do have to tell this story. So you were gonna be on our trivia team, and then you were like, I don't know if I'm gonna come to trivia. And then fortunately you did come to trivia, and the first question was one of those nickname questions, and I don't even remember what it was, but we were all staring at each other, and then you're just like, it's magnificent frigate bird. And we were like,
Yeah.
we
The
have a ringer.
question was yeah, the question was, which bird's nickname is, and it was something like something had to do with pirates and mariners, something like
Something
that.
like that.
And
And you knew it right
yeah,
away.
and it was just, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, what kind of, I mean,
You also got the tiebreak trivia question though too with
yeah,
was it what
uh,
warbler has an extra like hind claw or something?
yeah, which warbler has an extended hind toe?
Yes.
And so, logically thinking, well, which warbler doesn't act like any of the other ones? Like black and white. There you go.
Boom.
But
Tie
yeah,
broken. Fourth
And
place.
range map with the plain Chachalaca. What state is that where there's that random colony?
yeah. So Georgia,
It is.
Georgia.
yeah,
Yep.
it
Yeah.
is Georgia. Yeah. So we do have, in fact, a resident colony of plain Chachalacas on Sapelo Island. They were introduced long ago for hunting there, but they and then at one point in time they became ABA countable, and so every now and again you'll see on eBird where somebody went out there and got them, but it's kind of a special access place. You have to line up access like before you get to the island, so you have to line up boat transportation to the island, and then you have to line up transportation for when you are on the island as well. Because you can't go there and just think, oh, well, I'm gonna walk around and look for them. Like, no, the island is too expansive and is too large for that. But so you got to have transportation if you go in there to look for them. But there's not many of them anymore. But they are still there though.
I do think it's hilarious. Somebody just saw those and was like, "I want these in my state," and just took else. Like, that's hilarious.
How many people
I
live
want
on that
these
island?
here, yeah, or I want to shoot these, and yeah, I wonder what possessed somebody to.
I like to think it wasn't. They were just like, "These are cool. I want some of these."
Wonder what possessed somebody to give them away. But
yeah, I don't know.
I
But
think we
as
should do that in Wisconsin. We got plenty of islands that those would just be lovely on.
as
I mean, we don't just give away chachalakas. I mean, it's not like somebody just has chachalakas just on standby. Oh, want some chachalakas? Here you go. Like, I was talking to yeah, I was talking to a fella the other day, and he was talking to me about the reintroduction of brown-headed nuthatches to this one site in Florida, and he just casually acted like during the conversation as if somebody had brown-headed nuthatches on standby and was giving them away. He was just like, yeah, they gave them away, and it was just
so Trey, fade into the darkness here. I think Ryan's gonna ask you to talk about a very important event.
Yes.
okay.
It's been hilarious, by the way, to watch you just literally, like he said, fade into the darkness, because you started out in a very bright and sunny area, and now your whole square on screen is black, other than what
Yeah.
I think is out the window in the top right. But we always ask this to everybody. It's a very intriguing topic to us. And I know that you're somebody that's had some experiences. Tell us about Sasquatch. Is it real? Has there ever been anything else that you've experienced out in the woods that has freaked you out, scared you, given you pause to go back? We want to hear all about it.
Well, that's the big question. That's what everybody wants to know. Is it real? Is it not real? I mean, that's the big debate. But I've had a couple encounters in the woods that I have no explanation for, and I've watched a decent amount of those Bigfoot shows and all on there, and am familiar with what it apparently sounds like and looks like and all that. And like, I've seen and heard some stuff on some birding trips that just kind of left me speechless. Like kind of going from, oh, it's not real. Oh, it's just this thing people talk about, yada yada, and then to, actually having these experiences, and then, making me stop in my tracks and like, wait a minute, what just happened? What did I just hear? What did I just see? Like, I mean, that's the big question. Like, I can't say 100% for a fact that in these experiences that's what it was, but I will say there's definitely a lot of evidence that points that direction.
Which I have to say, I think in the past, it was something that if people mentioned that they believed in Sasquatch, and believed in is a weird way to say it, but if they thought Sasquatch was a real entity out in the woods, that it would have been received more poorly. I think that in modern times it's become something that is less so. So when you hear that somebody thinks that Sasquatch exists, it's not met with people thinking that that's ridiculous, more so as it's met with intrigue. I was wondering, could you tell us one of the stories? Because you told me one when we were in Ohio that I thought was pretty interesting. Would you tell that one again about when you were in the
yeah,
car with Rob?
that was the one that sticks out the most, because that was the one where that had the visual sighting of the creature, or I mean, I don't know what the thing was, but so anyway, we were my buddy Rob from Wisconsin, him and I were out on our annual summer trip out in high in the mountains just east of Salt Lake City. We were searching for flammulated owl. At the time, it would have been a lifer for both of us, and so we're just going up the mountain, and it's pitch dark, and we can't see anything. We can't see what kind of trees are there to figure out if we might be in the right place for the owl or not. So we just kind of just every now and again just do these random stops and listen and see if we hear anything. And one of these stops, we had both of the windows down on the car, and we were listening for the owls, and all of a sudden I started hearing these footsteps crunching in the leaves, and I was just and I started dialing in on it, listening in, and then I realized, oh, it's bipedal, and meaning it's walking on two legs, and so I zoned in on it even more with my hearing, and I got to thinking, oh, it's just a person coming out of the woods. I passed it off as that, and then a couple seconds later, dawned on me, wait a minute, it's like 11 o'clock out at night out here, and it's pitch dark. We're high in the mountains in Utah. Like, we haven't heard or seen anybody up here the whole time. We haven't seen any cars going down or up this mountain. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, if this was a person in the pitch dark coming out from hiking in the woods or something, wouldn't they have a headlamp? Wouldn't they have a flashlight? You'd think so, but didn't see any of that. And so just kept listening in on it. The footsteps getting closer, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat with the window down. And the next thing I know, I look out my window, and about 6 feet from me, 6 to 7 feet away from me, I can see just the part of it that's as high and in sight with my head. I'm sitting in the car. I can't see anything really below or above that. I can just see kind of at head height looking out the window, and I see a section of whatever this thing is walk by, and all I see is long, dark, brown, shaggy fur. And this thing is obviously taller than the car. Like it's I mean, I don't know of any animals that might be out there in the wilderness that kind of just casually walking, through there, might be taller than a car. Like a bear certainly wouldn't. I mean, sure, a bear stands up on its hind legs, but bears only do that momentarily. Bears don't sit there and just kind of walk through the forest all around foraging and traveling around on their two hind legs. No, the bears get up on their hind legs when they're foraging, trying to get something, climb a tree, something like that. They're not going to travel on their hind legs. But so yeah, I don't know what this thing was. It was, I mean, everything points to that's what it might be. It was definitely something I've never seen and I've never experienced before, and I've been birding strongly for 20 years, and I've been out in the wilderness that long, and I've never seen anything like this before.
So did you guys just there? Like, were you like, we gotta go, or what happened?
Well, Rob was the one that flipped out. He was the one that turned on the car and got us out of there. And when he did that, I turned to him. I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We didn't get the flammulated owl yet." He's like, "I'm getting out of here." Like, I mean, even though with the thing being, even though with the potential of it being a Sasquatch, and with the thing being that close to me, I did not experience any fear. I did not experience any uneasy feelings or anything. But
Rob
but
must
then
have.
again, but then again, there have been other times where I've been in the woods and birding, and I've heard, or and not per se really seen, but kind of heard like something out of the ordinary that I've never really heard before, and I've had um kind of odd things happen then. But
So Rob must have seen the same thing you did, right? And you guys
he did not. So Rob was in the driver's seat, so he would have had to look over over me in my seat and then out my window. I could barely see it from when it walked by my window. I just caught like a 2-second glimpse of like the fur of this thing as it went by, and then that was it. Like Rob could hear the footsteps and all. He heard all that fair and square, but um
so that's what freaked Rob out, footsteps, and that's why he wanted to get up.
the footsteps, and then, you know, at one point he did ask me, like, is there a possibility that that's what it is? And when I told him, oh yeah, that's that's what it might be. Like, I mean, it's not. It's like there's no other ordinary animals that are gonna behave like this. You know, a moose, a bear, like none of that. Like, um, yeah. And so when I told Rob that it potentially could be something like that, maybe he that's when he got a little uneasy and got out of there. But
What I
I mean,
like about it is that you don't just immediately say, "Yeah, I saw a Sasquatch." You just say, "I saw something, I don't know what it was," which I feel makes it more credible. Because there's those people
yeah,
that no matter what it is, "Oh yeah, that's clearly Sasquatch. Oh yeah, Sasquatch does this. Definitely Sasquatch." And you're just saying, "I saw something, I don't know what it was, and it could have been this thing," which I think makes it
right.
more credible.
Yeah, and that just kind of ties back to what I mentioned earlier in the birds when I'm birding, the criteria for the birds to for a life bird for me to be able to put it on my list, as I kind of mentioned before, is kind of a similar thing here. Like, I didn't see the thing in broad daylight, head to toe, you know, it's between night and day. This is what it is without a shadow of a doubt. Like, no, like it's pitch dark out here. Like, yeah. So,
yeah, even if it was a person, I could see that being kind of unnerving too, because like you don't know what's going on out there. But
exactly.
That's
it's
almost more unnerving.
it's funny how quick situations switch from I'm looking for this bird to your safety's in jeopardy. And you're like, bird doesn't matter. Let's get out of here. Like it seems like
Not
not just
Trey, apparently. He was like, "We haven't found the owls yet."
true. That's I may have
Yeah.
spots, but we haven't found the owl. Why are we leaving? But I feel like that flip can switch so quickly. For Ryan and me, one time, like we almost got our car stuck somewhere in Arkansas, and we were like going somewhere where maybe we could find red-cockaded woodpeckers, and it was kind of the middle of nowhere, and we got it unstuck. But we were like, let's just go. We don't need to check. Like that switch flips so quickly to I'm like,
Yeah.
yep, bird. We can get the bird some other time. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But
And then, like some of the other experiences you've had, was it like noises you've heard?
yeah, it was just kind of noises. Like one of the ones that in particular, kind of the audio that stands out the most is in the bog. I mean, this now I will say, unlike the sighting, this was like between night and day here. But was it a Sasquatch that made the noise? That's the big question. But
Where was?
Saxon Bog,
Oh, okay.
Minnesota, my first time, I think it was. Yeah, it was my first time up to the bog, and Rob and I went out at night looking for saw-whet owls. And yeah, so we just, again, just like the flams, flammulated owls, we just did these random roadside stops. And at one of the stops, we briefly played the recording of the saw-whet owl, and instantly after we pressed pause, this thing sounded off from in the woods, and it went, oh, like that. And I mean, there's like, it's night out in the bog. Like, if any of our listeners have never been to the bog before, the bog is a place, the Saxon Bog in northern Minnesota is a place that one could consider the epitome of wilderness. There is nothing out there. It's just pure wilderness. It's like, I've never experienced the saying before, silence is deafening, until I went to the Saxon Bog. Like, the silence that I witnessed out there is truly deafening. I've never lived that saying before until then, and by God, did my ears hurt. But I mean, there is just nothing out there. So there was no winds blowing, like, or anything, and it's just dead quiet. And so we hear this thing sound off. I mean, just like that. I mean, there's kind of, I mean, what else is it gonna be? I don't know. Like, I mean, the only other thing it could be is a cow, hypothetically. Like, is there a cow out there? Like, probably not. Like, in that area we were in specifically, there were no, that we knew of, there were no cattle. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, between night and day, it sounded exactly like the sounds that they play on the TV shows of Sasquatch. But the $1,000,000 question is, was it Sasquatch? It still remains a mystery.
Yeah, I mean,
And
there's
I think it always,
that make weird noises too. But I could see how that
yeah,
would be thing to just be like, did you guys just get out of there?
yeah. And
You
once
were
again,
like, we need
I wanted to, once again, I wanted to stay behind and listen for the saw-whet owl, but the vote was not in that favor. So,
Oh,
I
that's
could,
but
interesting.
yeah, so yeah, remains a mystery. And I mean, scientists are trying to prove it's real and all, but I mean, I think it's gonna always remain a mystery. So,
I've got to say that that was the best story about something unanswered happening in the woods that someone's had on our podcast so far, having to do
really,
with paranormal or
that's
creatures.
amazing.
Yeah, some people have had some interesting and scary stories about humans that they've encountered in the woods or in natural areas, but that's the first time someone's actually
Yeah,
had a real experience with something they couldn't explain
like
on the show.
like you mean like what, like elaborate on that a little more.
So I remember
with humans.
one that somebody said, and I don't remember who it was right now, Derek, so you'll have to remind me. They said they were out in a place where there was only one other person, I think, and that person was kind of lurking around their car, like they were gonna steal stuff from them or
Huh.
potentially harm them. So I remember they said they hid and watched to see what happened. Do you remember that story, Derek?
Huh.
Oh yeah. Like that one, it could have been nothing, but
But it was
Yeah.
still creepy. It was, I got how it was creepy and I would have been
I have
creeped out
heard
too.
of people, like certain areas that I birded. Other birders told me they were in that same location. They got chased by someone with a gun that was in there. I mean, that'd be kind
Oh,
of creepy
gee.
too.
Yeah.
I always worry
I've not
about
had anything.
drug
I've
traffickers.
not any what?
I said I always worry about running into like traffickers or something, or just
No, yeah.
running up, like, finding something you shouldn't be finding type deal.
Yeah. Yeah, like one kind of the only time I've ever had an uncomfortable experience with other people being in the area when I was birding is last summer when I did my field season in Utah. We did there's a lot of different portions of that project. At first, we did pinion jay counts, and then kind of the ongoing thing throughout the whole season with the pinion jays was to figure out how we can trap them, what's the best method to trap these guys and band them. And so we didn't figure out kind of the best way to do it until the end of the season. That's when we started getting birds. And then that was kind of in March and April when it was still snow and it was cold. And then in May, when things warmed up, we started our sagebrush desert point counts. And then kind of as the songbirds tickered off, we did greater sage grouse brood counts. So we did dog surveys. So we had a bird dog and we took them out and ran a designated route and did our grouse counts. But anyway, on one of my surveys, I was way up high in the top of these hills, and like I drove the ATV up there, and like there's in this part of Utah, it's not like Salt Lake City. In this part of Utah, it's just desert for hundreds of miles. Like there's other than little towns scattered, one here, one there. Other than that, there is nothing out here. And so we were staying just on this little ranch in one of these little old towns, and so I was up in the hills on one of my morning surveys and had the ATV up there, and I was on the count with like a minute or two left, and I heard two people talking. Like it sounded like it was just kind of very strange to me because it wasn't like I heard them in the distance first and then the voices starting getting closer and closer. It was just like all of a sudden out of the blue, I just heard them, and they sounded like that they were just like right there, like a few layers of trees back from where I was standing. And so it was kind of unnerving because I'm up here way up in these hills. Like what are these people doing up here? Like there's nothing or nobody, there's not supposed to be anybody up here. And so like I cut the count short, and I'm like, I don't know who these people are, what they're doing up here, but I'm out in the wilderness. If like I don't want to stay around to find out either. And so I turned on the ATV immediately and and flew down the mountain. And yeah, they definitely heard me turn on the ATV, and they heard an ATV going, but they didn't know I was there. They didn't know I was there until I turned on the ATV to get out of there. So, you know, just as they kind of spooked me, I may have spooked them as well. Like, who knows? But
Well, the thing about it too is that if you do encounter people in the woods in places where there really shouldn't be people, then there's a feels at least like there's a high probability that they're doing something that they wouldn't want you around to see what they're doing. So, in my
exactly.
opinion, when
Yeah.
you're out there somewhere remote and you encounter other people when you're not expecting to encounter people, you immediately feel creeped out. They could just be
No,
there
a
not doing
hundred
anything
percent.
wrong, but you're gonna be creeped out.
100%. Yeah.
Well, Trey, it's been fun chatting with you. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah,
People.com
likewise.
as well as your Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, to learn more about our tours, go to loggerheadnaturetours.com. We've currently just recently, within the last week, have opened registration for our Saxon Bog Tour coming up in mid-February next year. So, yeah, go on there, check us out, check that out. We've also got quite a bit more stuff in the works that we're working on, and so we've got a lot more coming up here within the next couple months. So
You guys have a Facebook page too, right?
yeah, Facebook and Instagram. So
And you've been kind of posting updates from your travels as well, right? So people can check that
yeah,
out too.
I have. So yeah, I've got some photos on Instagram, and yeah, I've been posting on Facebook about kind of updates on what's going on, where I'm at, and then I've even got a blog section on the website, broken down into the different days, May 12th, May 13th, like that. So yeah, if you want to follow along on the journey this year, loggerheadnaturetours.com.
Sweet. Well, sounds good. Looking forward to hear more
Yeah,
about your travels, and people can check out more about your stuff on loggerheadnaturetours.com as well as the Instagram and the Facebook page.
absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.